Five, four, three, two, one. Here we go. All right, everybody. Welcome back to Hatch Talk. I'm Shawn Bailey,
I'm Patrick Lyle.
and we are talking chickens. Brought to you by Incubator Warehouse. Today it is February. We're still focused on incubation this month. Um, this episode, we're really going to focus in and talk about one of the most crucial things when you are talking about incubating chicks. It is humidity. Okay.
Humidity.
We're gonna break it down. Humidity. We got to cover exactly everything you need to know. So if you ever worried about humidity and hatching chickens, you've got the right podcast here. So
That's right. That's right.
we're here.
We're also gonna talk about a couple different types of ways to handle your humidity issues, depending on your location and things like that. We're gonna touch on the forbidden technology, but we're gonna talk about it.
Yes, yeah, and we're gonna get into all types of incubators and how humidity works. We're also going to touch on dry hatching as well. So now my first hatch, I was always chasing the humidity numbers. I'm here in Idaho, so it's not very humid. So we don't have a lot of ambient humidity collecting in my incubator. It's actually pretty dry. I think the baseline humidity temperature I was seeing was like 20%. So I definitely have to add water to
Yep.
my incubator to get any kind of humidity. But it was really hard for me to stay within the levels that I was trying to go for. I was always I don't think my humidity levels ever read perfect.
Right, right. And it's similar to temperature. You're looking for an average. You're looking to hold a nice average. You're gonna have some variations up and down as your water, evaporates up out of the system and everything like that. But just like with
Mhm.
temperature, you're looking for a good average. That's all you need.
Right. So you mean humidity is just not adding water?
No, no.
It's
I
not
can't
that
even tell you
simple.
how many times I've been asked how many cups of water do people need to add to their incubator, or how many cups is it going to take to get to 50%, or how many cups is it going to take to get to lockdown stages. And unfortunately, it just doesn't work like that. But in my personal opinion, it's just as easy to understand how humidity does work, how surface area and water volume work, and just all those different things that really just are going to help you kind of understand the better ways of controlling your humidity in your incubator. So um,
So what
it's
is
definitely
humidity, right? It's the
it's
the
evaporated
water
water.
in the air, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's just water that evaporates. And um, one way I like to remember it is the surface area is what's going to get you higher numbers. The depth of the water is what's going to make it last longer. Those are two important things that people really sometimes don't differentiate. They I almost wonder if they associate it with like a pot of boiling water. If it's in there, it's all boiling, it's all doing its thing, it's all evaporating. And unfortunately, with humidity and the way you control it, it's just all about surface area.
Yeah, okay. So that's interesting too. Because if you're talking about humidity and geography in areas, that really does make a big difference, even in the global scheme of things, right?
Yep, yep,
Living in Idaho, we don't have a lot of surface area of water around us. I mean, we do have beautiful lakes and rivers and stuff like that. Don't get me wrong, but it is a lot different compared to like Florida, where I've lived
yep.
before. And Florida, if you're from a dry climate like myself, I grew up in Utah, lived in Idaho, and when I moved to Florida for a bit, that was a wake up call because humidity, what it feels like if you live in a dry climate, when you get out of the shower and your bathroom's
Hmm.
all steamy, that's humidity. And
Yep, yep,
Florida feels like that all the time, but they have a lot of lakes. It is a peninsula. There's a lot of surface area covered by water, and it's hot. So the heat, causing evaporation all the time there.
yep, yep. And also any place that gets a lot of rain, things like that, that creates humidity. That creates
It's water in
the
the air.
the yeah, the perfect formula to create a nice humid environment. I had a similar life experience like you. You know, I lived in Idaho most of my life. I moved to the Oregon coast for a few years, and my first 2 or 3 months there, I was miserable. I was always feeling just sweaty and clammy, and it wasn't always hot, you know, but there was still plenty of humidity going on there, and it took me a little bit to adapt, but that's all right. I'm back in Idaho now, nice and dry, and I can't complain.
And that's one thing too, to think about when with humidity as well, is elevation affects humidity quite a bit.
Hmm.
When you're down, closer to the ocean, if you're on sea level, there's a lot more atmosphere above you, and that pushes those water molecules down. So it is going to be a lot more humid at sea level. So places like that are above sea level and are drier, like, Denver is a great example, the Mile High City. It doesn't feel as humid there because it is so higher and the air molecules aren't there. So that's going to affect, what if you're incubating, ca- you're going to have, that's why there's no like manufacturer kind of like details exactly this is the humidity and how much water you can add,
Right.
because there's
Yeah.
so many variables and they're selling them across the world. It's just always these random numbers. So, elevation, surface area, ambient temperature, those are all things that are going to come into play when we're talking about, building humidity for an incubator.
Yep. Yep. And let's something that's we just need to face is modern incubation has gotten a lot easier with controlling humidity and your different options you have for humidity control. You know, back in the day, back before you and I were even thinking about hatching chickens, people were using tubs of water with sponges or cotton in there to wick up the water to make larger surface areas in whatever container they were using. Nowadays, most incubators come with little water troughs in the base, or you have things like your HumidiKits that you can add to it. So the
Hmm.
humidity game has really changed. It's on the come up, and you'll notice a trend with a lot of incubators that are coming out now is I think the manufacturers know this, and they've tried to create much easier ways for people to handle and control that humidity. And mostly we see that with those outward facing water ports or the bottle systems that come with a lot of new incubators.
Right. So, why is humidity so important when we're talking about hatching eggs?
Well, the biggest thing about humidity in hatching eggs is not only does it help with the embryonic growth, when it comes to lockdown, it is key to making sure that the inner membranes do not shrink wrap and dry up around the chicks. They need a little bit of moisture when they come out because there is air flowing through that humidic or through that incubator. That air tends to dry things out pretty quickly. You and I experienced this with some chicks a few days ago, and sometimes if there's just not a humid enough environment, it's just super detrimental to your hatch. It's going to cause your birds to get stuck, get sticky, and sometimes not make it out of the eggs because they have a much more leathery, hard kind of membrane to work through. So
Yeah, that
the
makes
the
sense.
biggest thing is just keeping everything nice, moist, pliable, and easy to work with in there.
Hold on one second. Just edit. Hey, bud, if you can't tell, I'm recording right here, so I need you to do that somewhere else. Thank you. Sorry.
I
My,
didn't even
s-
hear anything.
my son's in there making a sandwich. Oh, I'm just being careful. I've got a good mic. I've got to get everything else set up. All right, back at it. Well, I mean that makes sense too. Like on an evolutionary kind of perspective too. I mean, chickens. Um, I don't know how far back chickens go, like compared to like dogs or whatever. But they've been inbred by people for a long time, but they were probably originated, you could tell by like a really humid environment. First off, that's where they're native to. So I mean, just like dogs and other things, people have bred them to, thousands of different breeds and thousands of different characteristics, and across the whole world. But they're native to a humid environment. So that's why, I mean, speaking, that's why they have, better guidelines for, hatching chicks, is make sure it is a good human environment.
Yep. And I one thing to keep in mind, at least I like to think about, is chickens are essentially little dinosaurs. And if you think about, reptile eggs and we're talking evolution and stuff like that. Um, I feel that if they did evolve from, dinosaurs or the reptilian species like that, they didn't always come with hard shell eggs.
And
Those
that
shells are usually soft on and easy to work their way out of, more or less.
Yeah, that's actually something that's really interesting because, like, I've been looking at incubating maybe some pythons and
Mm,
checking out python eggs. They're a weird egg,
yes, yes,
it's
they are.
very spongy and soft, and they stick together, and it's very interesting that they're. I mean, yeah, they both eggs, but they're different types of eggs, and
Yep,
the
yep.
thicknesses, and it's really amazing to me too, looking at the difference between like an emu egg and a chicken egg too, how thick they are, and compared to like what the kind of environment, because emus, they're from Australia, and it's a hot, humid, not humid, more airy, kind of dry environment, but they're quite a bit different. So
Yeah, yeah.
they're fascinating for sure.
The science behind it is deep and plentiful for sure. It's crazy how evolution has worked out and how everything has changed in all these different creatures.
So let's break down. So with the uh, an incubator,
Mhm.
right? We're getting humidity by adding water into a hot environment, right? Through the channels from different surface area. Do you have those handy to talk about those?
Oh, yeah. Let me grab those really quick.
Yeah. You like my new chicken shirt, by the way?
Yeah, I do. I do. I do.
Gonna- This is only one I can wear while recording because it's a little tight and it's see through. You can't tell because I got a black shirt on, but it is very see through. Thank you, Timu.
That's funny. Yeah, my Timu Hawaiian shirt is also a little tight.
Yeah. All right. So when you're looking at different type of incubators, this is something definitely to take a look at when you're talking about the surface area and how the water is sitting and how deep it is. Because if you have different designs, are going to show exactly how dialed in you can have your humidity by the design. So when you're picking out your incubator, it's really important to check out the tray. I mean, you got some trays. Let's show them out.
Yeah, for sure. So the first one I'm going to show, this is more of a traditional style here. You can see this. Let me just back up a little bit. So this is commonly found in most styrofoam incubators, the Hovabators, little giants, things like that. And as you can see, there's these different ports here. We got 1, 2, 3, and 4 labeled across the bottom here. And what you do traditionally with this style is you open up the lid of the incubator. You got to pour it through the mesh floor that's in there. So you're pouring through, a mesh floor to try to get those water levels right. This is kind of an older way of doing it, not really a convenient thing, and you don't really see this style anymore. But the way it works is it's meant for several different environments. Generally, you're going to start with water in number one. In most places, that's going to get you where you need to be, but you can add more if needed. Eventually, with filling them all up and even filling this center one for lockdown if you really need the surface area to increase your humidity. Generally, that's more for drier environments. The way things have kind of gone these days, we're going to use an IncuView here for an example, is water water goes in through an external port. So there's no more opening the lid. Hi, here I am. No more opening the lid. You have some labeled external ports to add the water to, so you know where you're putting them. And when they come into the incubator, you're going to see either different levels So the water will hit different levels, increase the surface area depending on how much you add. Or there's going to be specifically designed troughs or waterways in the base of the incubator, where they know that if you fill the first one up, it'll get you within incubation range. Fill the second one up, it'll get you into hatching range. Um,
Hold that up
the
again, because that's really smart design. When you're looking at incubators, this is something you really want to compare. The not only is there's different, surface area, when you're filling up different ports, but it's also the depth. So
Mhm.
I mean, the IncuView is really smart design when it comes to the humidity and evaporation, because each of those levels are going to have different evaporation rates
Yep.
and different exposure rates for a surface level, which means it's going to be a more stable environment for base level incubation. And that's not even talking about humidity help from external forces like a HumidiKit.
Yep.
That
Yep.
that is really really smart design. A lot of people when they're shopping around looking at incubators, that's not even things that come into their mind. They're like, "Oh, does this look cute?" No, I
Yeah.
mean, humidity is the biggest factor when it comes to successful hatch rates. And if you want an easier hatch, look for a good design as far as evaporation levels or channels or surface area and compare those, because if you want to up your game, keep that in mind, because I've seen a lot of these other, you know, Timu type incubators, and my golly, you can see that big difference in quality for sure.
Yeah, yeah, you definitely can. And something to keep in mind is regardless of what incubator you're using, if you're struggling to hit certain humidity points, if you can't get it high enough, there's other options besides just using the built-in tray or built-in water trays. You know, a little Tupperware bowl and a sponge added to your incubator if you're not getting it high enough, that increases the surface area of some water just dramatically.
Right.
Um, one of my favorite cabinet model incubators, the GQF model, 1502, 1500 series or whatever they are. Um, they have always used just a water pan that goes in the top, and it comes with wicking sponges, so you can increase your humidity and surface area without even needing to have a bigger tray for your water. You're just increasing it by putting those wicks in there. They're absorbing the water up, creating the surface area, which it essentially doubles the surface area of the water that you would normally have in there. So some companies have figured it out. They've figured workarounds and good ways to make it to where you can get where you need to be. But if you do find yourself in a situation where you need higher humidity and you can't get there, just the old sponge trick in a little tub of water is going to work wonders for you.
Yeah. And I've seen too, and this works for certain types, people have gotten yarn and then filled the trays, the liners with the yarn, and then the yarn goes to the outside of a bowl that actually pulls in, and the yarn dries out on the inside and pulls it in. And that probably works for more of a more humid where you get a base level like 50, 60% humidity where you're at, and it'll draw in more water at a constant rate from the outside of the yarn drying out and pulling the water in. That can work sometimes.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
it's little tricks. But the thing is don't overfill and then try to draw it back. I think that's one of the hardest things that I had to learn when I was
Yeah.
um, incubating my first time. Is I always like, oh, the water's low, so I filled it up to the top, and then I was trying to trace it back, and it was really not smart of me because I didn't know what I was doing. I'd pull the chicks out, and then I grabbed the incubator and like draining it out, and
Yep.
luckily, I just put a HumidiKit on, later, and it was a lot easier.
Yeah.
So
And if you do find yourself in a situation like that, just remember that no matter how dry you're trying to get it, you still need to let it run for a little bit and kind of evaporate that leftover water that's in that tray that you overfilled or try not to use,
mhm,
because you're going to get a little spike there regardless until that little bit of water, just the small amount of water that's going to be left after doing something like that, it'll evaporate up quickly and it'll get you right back down to it's proper running humidity.
yeah, and it's a lot easier to add the water than it is to take it away.
Definitely is. Yes, yes it is.
So don't try to, if you're chasing a number, don't chase under, chase to go over. Like that's
Yep.
probably my biggest piece of advice for beginners. Um, yeah,
And
that's
my personal advice for things like that, just get a HumidiKit. I mean, it is it that machine has changed the way so many people incubate. It has made the humidity guesswork and the trays and all that stuff obsolete.
yeah.
The HumidiKit is just it's really a great piece of technology that it helps anybody from beginner to veteran incubator. Like it is a must have in my personal opinion.
And in my opinion, and not just saying this because I work for Incubator Warehouse, um, it made my hatching so much more hands off
Hmm.
than I'm checking it, especially humidity and chasing humidity and whatever I'm worried about. When you first start out, you're like always checking temps and always checking levels and everything that now it's a trusted source. It's like boom, it's there. I don't even have to worry about it. I don't even, need to I leave it for days without even checking
Yeah,
on it.
yeah.
So,
If that water bottle's got water in it, you're good to rock.
all right. So, that's what brings me back up to it. The more you can leave your incubator closed, the better you are off, honestly. Especially for humidity. As soon as you open that lid, as soon as you open it up, all that humidity just kind of escapes, right? So, I mean, the biggest times of when you want to open your incubator, number one, 7 to 10 days after you started incubating, you want to candle them for the first time.
Yep.
You want to check on that growth and you can see if the eggs are actually, got a good membrane, they got good veins coming in. If they don't, pull them out of there because you don't want an egg to explode. Believe me, that is some nastiness to clean
That is
up.
so nasty.
You're
Yeah.
never gonna you're never gonna forget that rotten egg smell. 28 days in an incubator.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's so loud. It's so loud when they pop. It's yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
surprising. Yeah, it's gross though. So pull the ones that aren't developed out of there. Um, you know, we will do a whole podcast on candling later and show
Yep.
you steps and what to look for. But yeah, so that's the one time. Next, right before you go into lockdown, once again, candle the eggs again. Double check and see, if the progression's happened or not, and what you're looking for. That way, you can know what to expect, and for egg positioning and whatnot for your lockdown.
Yep. Yes. It's super important to not open that incubator once lockdown starts because once a chick pips, that is the crucial time for them. If you drop that humidity, if it gets too dry in there, I mean that's the difference between life and death for one of these chicks essentially. So
Right.
definitely those last 3 days, leave it shut. Don't mess with it. Make sure you've got everything in place and ready to go before you lock her down. That's why it's called lockdown for those final 3 days and let those birds hatch in peace.
Yes, for sure, for sure. And we'll go into lockdown as well. Like that's probably the next podcast coming up. There's a lot of things to go over in lockdown.
Oh yeah,
But humidity
tons of
levels
tons
for
of things to worry
sure.
about.
You're pumping the humidity like crazy. You're making sure that those eggs are nice and moist and they can get out. We had that little experience earlier this week with the Sophie's choice of eggs in lockdown. We knew we had
Hmm.
so many viable
Hmm.
eggs. We had a couple of chicks that were just really, really, not even close to being out of the shelf or being pipped. Do we help? Do we not help? Those are big things to watch out for.
They
Um,
are. They are.
One thing too with just personal experience right now because I am incubating some emu eggs at home. I'm using the IncuView. We don't have an egg turner yet for that big a egg for those, but I do have four of them in my IncuView. Um, and so I hand turn those every day. So like I'm constantly opening up, at least 4 or 5 times a day. But I do have a stable humid environment because of the HumidiKit. So that has been a game changer. I don't know if I could even think about having a viable, incubation for these emu eggs without having that, because as soon as it, opens up, it detects it and it drops a bunch of humidity there and it stabilizes within, 5-10 minutes. It's awesome.
Yep.
So
Yep.
that's crazy. Another plug-in for the HumidiKit. If you are going to be incubating something difficult like an emu egg or an ostrich egg, and you want that humidity really dialed in, you got to get a HumidiKit.
Yeah, we're not just plugging this because we work for Incubator Warehouse. This is literally a game changing piece of technology. Like I said, it's not something that you find many companies at all even offer. As far as I know, Incubator Warehouse is one of the only companies out there that offers any kind of automated humidity system like that, and it is amazing. I recommend it to everybody.
Yeah, honestly, huge difference maker. Uh, Here's a pro tip: always make sure that the hydrometer is in the incubator. Oh,
Yep, yep. That could definitely give you some wonky readings there, and you're going to have a
well,
tropical rainforest inside that incubator.
exactly. Exactly. Let's be dumping it. Yeah, that happened to me for a hot minute, and I kicked myself and I double check that every time, and it's a good spot for sure.
Hey, you live and you learn. You live and you learn.
You do, you do. And think speaking of hydrometers, it's not a bad idea to have an external hydrometer on there, to double check your numbers and make sure everything's good. I know we talked a little about that on a podcast before, but verified numbers with a good hydrometer is key to really dialing in that hatch rate. So, I
Yep,
mean, they're not that expensive. Get one, and honestly, make it your life so much easier.
yep. And to save space in your incubator, don't just get anyone. Get a freaking Incutherm because
Oh yeah.
it's going to tell you the temperature and the humidity all on one screen. Super great, super reliable. You know, it's better than having a bunch of different devices in there. It's just one screen reads it all. You're good to go.
Yeah, and my Incutherm has been dead on. I've done some calibration tests against it, and honestly, I mean, for a nice little digital um, hydrometer and thermometer, it's a great deal. So
Yep,
yeah,
yep.
definitely check those out for sure. Um, if you really want to dial it in, that's the biggest thing. All right, we're about at. I gotta reset this Zoom meeting, so
Okay.
we got 3 minutes on it. Anything else we want to wrap up before? I think we're getting close to getting on Keep It or Coop It.
Yeah, yeah. We're cruising through.
Okay.
We looks like after we do a reset, talk about dry hatch a little bit,
Yeah, let's dry
and
hatch. Talk
then
about it.
move on to
Coop It or
Coop It or
Crap It.
Crap It.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. You want to hop out of this meeting? I'll end the meeting.
Yep.
No, just use the same link.
Yep. Yep.
All right. Let me get you up here. Can I hear you? Give me a sound check. All right. Properties. Yeah, I got it. I turned that on. Oh, stupid. Come on. Where is this? There you are. Okay. Boom. All right. Now we're back. Okay. So, give me a second. I'm going to pour this. The joys of working from home. Um, okay. Talking about, okay. So that leads us into dry hatching. What is dry hatching?
Dry hatching is, well, depend. Okay, let me just take a few steps back here. Depending on where you've lived your whole life and all that, dry hatching is either a new or a very old way of incubating your eggs. Um, it's always been something big in the South, bigger in the coastal climates, things like that, because they really had no other choice. Um, but it got really big on the internet about 5, 6, 7 years ago, and everybody and their mother thought that dry hatching was the way to go because dry hatching was giving certain people some amazing results, and people just thought that was the way to do things. And there's been some misconceptions about it, but what it is essentially if you live in an environment where your relative humidity is able to keep that incubator around 30 to 40% with no water being added, then you're safe to dry hatch. Now, the twist is you're not actually dry hatching because when it comes to the hatch time, when it comes to lockdown, you're adding water because let's face it, 95% of the world's populace does not live in a tropical environment where they're going to have a 70% relative humidity. So dry hatching is from somebody who's been in my position, working with customers and stuff like that. It started out as a real pain in the tuchus, but once everybody has kind of become educated and learned a little more about it, it's really become a great technique for people who either didn't realize they had too much humidity, that they were in a humid environment and didn't need to drown out their chicks. um it's just a good way to do it if you're in that certain situation. Folks like us here in Idaho, here in the high desert, or up in the mountains, or if you got a winter where your home's heated with fire, or uh, just any kind of heater or stuff like that, it's not for us. That is not our tech. That is forbidden technology for us. Don't do it. But yeah, it's just essentially the same as the way we do it. Those people just don't have to add water for the first 18 days because their environment's humid enough.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, here's a rule of thumb. If you're going to try to dry hatch, it, environment is the key, right? Um, so if you live in the South in the states, and your relative humidity outside all the time is roughly 30 to 50%, you're probably good with the inside because you're going to get a little bit of drop of humidity when you're inside. Um, but anywhere else in the US. I mean, coming up Midwest, you could do it. Like I Michigan, it's humid there, but it gets cold in the winter, so you couldn't do it in the winter. But it's humid. Um, you know, eh, anywhere in the Western United States, you probably I wouldn't even try it. It's not going to work. But in the South and in some of the Midwest, um, even up north, East Coast, I wouldn't try it. It gets too cold because hatching season is when? It's now. It's February to April. You're gonna get some cold dips, and with cold, it gets drier. So,
Yep.
but I mean, if you're at a place like Florida, Georgia, Louisiana, North South Carolina, parts of Texas, I mean, you're probably good. But other than that,
Yeah.
you're going to need humidity. But dry hatching, I mean, I like the idea. It sounds like fun. Can't do it here.
Nope. Nope. I used to absolutely hate dry hatching. I at first, when I first started learning about it, I was like, this is the worst thing ever. Why would people do this? And after a little research, I figured it out. And rather than just you know crap it, I decided to start educating our customer base and stuff like that when they would call about dry hatching and wanting to do it or why it wasn't working for them or whatever the case may be. I had this one customer, great person. She followed this content creator located down South Florida area, and he was talking about how great his hatch rates were, and he discussed dry hatching and things like that. And so she thought, hey, I'm gonna dry hatch. Well, unfortunately, living in Arizona, dry hatching is not for you, not
Nope.
for you. And she got really mad that our incubator wasn't working for dry hatching, and that her eggs weren't hatching, and all this stuff was going on. And I took that as a learning experience for myself. I did my research. I studied deep on it, and I learned that it's actually a really great technique. It works in certain environments, and it just kind of became my job to relay that information to any customers that may have been wanting to do it but struggling with it. So yeah, dry hatching is, I don't know. I'll say it again. It's not something for everybody, but it definitely will work if you're in the right environment.
Yep. For sure. For sure. All right. Well, I mean, pretty much covers dry hatching. I would say, just know where you live, know your relative humidity, um, and your elevation. I think that's going to be a big part of dry hatching too. You might be in a decent place with humidity, but if you're in a high elevation with high humidity, that's going to come into play quite a bit.
Hmm. Yep, yep. I've even had, or I've also something to keep in mind. Don't know why I'm stuttering there. Something to keep in mind with all that is the higher elevations also do affect your temperature a little bit. We won't go into detail on that right now in this podcast, but that is something to think about. Is just like when you're baking and you live on the top of a mountain, you got to turn that oven on a little higher. It's going to be kind of similar with the incubator.
Yep, that's for sure. All right. Well, Patrick, you know what time it is.
My favorite time.
It's time to watch some clips from around the internet. It's
That's right.
time for some Coop It or Crap It, baby.
Love it. Let's do it.
Playing the theme. I'm going to put that in post this time because it was not even effective last time. All right, let me dingle around the background here. We'll pull up TikTok first. And where's my TikTokers?
Looks like you got 2 pages of Instagram. Oh,
I
there it is.
do because Instagram's retarded.
Yes, it is.
Today's homestead tip of the
All right. Okay, first up, this is B&R Homestead. He's one of my favorite content creators around chickens. Hilarious guy. If you're not following him, give him a follow.
Today's homestead tip of the day could very well be the reason why you might not be getting as many eggs as you could be. Now, much like their human counterparts, hens can get stressed for reasons that might not seem to make sense, but this can alleviate a lot of their stress. Love you, honey. Hens really lay a lot better when they have a nice calm environment to lay in where they're not very stressed. And one of the main things you need to understand with that is you need to have plenty of nesting boxes for them. So the rule of thumb is typically one nesting box per 4 hens, and we have a lot more than that. Now they only use 2 of these nesting boxes, and these are always empty, but I'm still going to stick to the ratios here. We have quite a few hens that are coming up on laying age, so I'm going to make sure I've got 2 more nesting boxes over top to accommodate them. So the main thing with these hens in their nesting boxes is they want to feel safe. That's why I keep the coop doors closed so it's nice and dark in here, and having this stacked on top is going to make them feel even safer in the bottom. Now, what this will do is really provide an environment where hens aren't going to have to compete for nesting boxes, which will make it a lot less stressful and hopefully will yield a lot more eggs for you per hen that you have. It's really no joke that hens will stop laying for pretty much any reason at all. And so here you go. We got 6 new nesting boxes. Went ahead and got them installed. It took about 5 minutes. This should house about 48 laying hens. And right now we've got 35 with some more coming soon. And so this should hold us over for a little while. But make sure you're following us for more homesteading tips. Today's homestead tip of the day could very well be the reason why you might not be getting as many.
All right. So
That's great. I
this
think
is
that's
a
great.
yeah, this is a great tip. Anything you can do to make your hens honestly feel more comfortable laying, that's going to increase your egg ratio by far. So adding a few more nesting boxes like this, keeping that good ratio of 1 to 4 is really important.
Yep. I had a coop at one point that had, I believe it was 10 nesting boxes in it, 5 on the bottom, 5 above it, just double stack. And like he was saying, I noticed that the hens tend to use maybe 2 or 3 of those boxes, and some of them would cluster themselves in 2 per box sometimes for no reason. I don't know why. But I didn't judge them because they kept laying. They did their thing, but don't be frustrated if your hens are doing that. It's totally normal, and eventually someone's going to use those nesting boxes. They're not going to go to waste.
And it's really going to depend too on the coop culture, as it were. If you've got
Hmm.
a a really big pecking order with the hens, that they might dictate on where they're going to be laying for sure.
Yep, yep.
All right. I hope that echo didn't screw that up um,
I didn't hear
on the
anything.
recording. You didn't hear it. You wouldn't hear it until I look at OBS, but I
Mm.
muted them like I did last time. So, but we may or may not have that in the episode. All right. Staying with TikTok, we've got our log homestead.
It's now day 18, so time to take out the egg turner and get the chicks ready to hatch. You remove the egg turner because chicks need to position themselves in the egg to hatch, so no turning after day 18. I always use a towel here because I do not want any of these precious chicks rolling onto the ground. So for days 18 to 21, the humidity needs to be increased to 65 to 75% for hatching. So you'll add water to increase the humidity and you'll open the vent wide open. Days 20 to 21, they will start hatching. You'll notice a crack in the shell, which is known as a pip, and then they will slowly unzip themselves and hatch. I like to leave them in the incubator until they're nice, warm, and fluffy, and then I will remove them unless there's any chicks actively hatching. I will remove them because it does get pretty crowded in this incubator, and move them to the brooder, which is so fun to watch, never gets old. Okay, so for the brooder, I like to use puppy pads for the first few days for super easy cleanup, small dishes for chick crumble, a chick water, and I do like this heating plate a lot as compared to a red heating lamp. I'll have all my chick hatching saved to a chick highlight, and I will send you the link to the incubator if
All right. So,
Spot on technique. Spot on.
yeah, she's got pretty much everything. You're getting ready for lockdown. Get all the eggs out of there for sure. You're going to want to dump the humidity. You're going to put a lot of water in there. That way, you're going to get that humidity level up to, where you're looking at the 65, 75%. I'm going to start putting the little liners in to help with spray leg. I think that could be done a little bit better here.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that slick plastic floor could cause some issues for sure. So
you
definitely have
notice
some sort of liner in there.
the tabletop eggshell incubator, you can tell that there's a little bit of humidity buildup where it might be escaping. That's normal as long as there's good levels. Just watch out for it.
Yep.
for sure. But yeah, I mean, she's doing a great job. Looks like a great hatch rate. From what I can tell, it's a pretty full incubator.
Yeah, that looked like a good one.
And the brooder setup's pretty good too. Little pads, puppy pads. That's going to make it easy to clean up. With our instant brooder, we have liners that do the same thing, which is great. It's super easy.
Hmm.
Yeah,
And also the liners that we do offer are antimicrobial, so which I'm sure puppy pads are as well.
yeah, for sure. Great, great little video. Good explanation of how to do lockdown.
Good job, our log homestead.
All right, now we have Simply Chickens. She's a great content creator for sure.
My incubator because I'm hatching chicken eggs this week. I know I said no more hatching, but I'm a crazy chicken lady, so I don't know why any of you would trust me on that. There we go. We have power, people. I love how there's a built-in egg handler. You just press the minus button and look at that. I'm just going to test the egg turning tray and she's moving and working great. Now it's time to raise the humidity. I am going to do this by filling up the water just to cover the first tab here. If I'm trying to raise humidity, I close the vent. If humidity levels are too high, I will open up the vent. My hatching eggs are arriving in about 3 days. I'm getting everything started up today because I am new to this brand incubator. So I need to make sure that I am able to keep my humidity percentage between 45 and 55%. And I need to make sure that this temperature stays consistent before I just throw in hatching eggs, because if these levels are constantly off, it can prevent or stop the chicks from developing, or if they start to develop, it can kill them. So for the next 3 days, I'm going to figure out my new bestie and I will keep you all updated. Let's set up my incubator because
I love it. 3 days of testing. Oh, love it.
Yeah, she's doing a lot of things right. Right when she gets the incubator, this is the time to plug it in, test it out, make sure it gets up to temperature, and then she plugs in the water. It's got the egg timer. She's messed with the egg timer. And notice that she's got the egg candler going, figuring everything out. If you're getting brand new, you got a brand new little incubator, pull it out of the box, warm it up, get it going, get everything dialed in before you get those eggs. Just
read your instructions. Please read your instructions.
Yes, for sure.
Just throwing that out there.
Read the instructions.
Looks like she went over them. She knew all the little nooks and crannies of that thing. That's what I love to see.
Yep. Great job. Best piece of advice to have a better hatch rate is know your equipment. For sure.
Definitely. Yep.
All right.
It's finally time to put our eggs.
Now we have also on TikTok we have Jess Friends. This is a great little video of first time hatcher. Check it out.
It's finally time to put our eggs in the incubator. I've never done this before, so I've been reading up on it, trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do.
It says that it's a still air incubator, so it doesn't have a fan, but I have it set to the temperature that it says online. The humidity is at 78 though, and I feel like that's higher than everything I've seen online, and I don't know where you put the water in on this, so if you've used one of these before, please let me know.
We're doing this in my bathroom because it's said to be away from windows and doors so you don't get any drafts or sunlight. And the other thing that I read said to mark every single egg with an X and an O on each side so that you know that it's rotating properly, so that's what we're gonna do first. X, O. So it looks like this incubator does rotate the eggs, but I'm wondering, am I also supposed to rotate them on my own? Because I've seen that too. If you know, please let me know. Now for the silkies. This one's got a little bit of dirt on it. X, O. I'm starting to get nervous about this. I hope that I do everything right. Now that those are all marked, let's put them in.
I don't know what I'm doing. See, it doesn't look like there's anywhere to add water, so I don't understand the humidity situation. Do I put them all next to each other or should I space them out? 2, 3, 4. And is it still pointy side down? Please tell me if I'm doing this wrong. 5, 6. I just realized I didn't do anything with the X's or the O's, so we need to fix that. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and the last one, 13. Okay, so I guess we just shut this and hope that everything works out.
It's finally time to put our eggs in the incubator. I've never done reading up on it,
all
trying
right.
to figure out what I'm
That's one way to do it.
This is FAFO of incubating eggs. Yeah. First off,
so I do feel like a little bit of what was going on there, maybe for the clicks, maybe for the views,
yeah.
I'd like to think that maybe she did some research ahead of time
Boosted
and maybe has a good idea.
Do a lot of call attentions for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So first of all, with the X's and O's, you don't need those when you're having an upright turner like that. That's not how it works. They rock them side to side. They don't roll them. Not a huge fan of permanent marker in eggs. I feel like you're just asking those developing embryos to absorb those chemicals and that smell essentially.
And what kind of, is that a Helbivator? What is that?
No, that is, geez, that's the not Little Giant, not Hovabator. There's one other brand out there that does these style incubators,
And she
and
couldn't
I can't remember off
find
the top
where
of
to
my
put it
head.
because the tray's in the bottom and she just didn't look at it.
Yeah.
And
These are the models that you used to traditionally find at like a Tractor Supply company before they started doing the Nurture Rights and the other brands. This was one of the main ones they carried.
yeah, and it just looks like it's just a little poor planning. I think she's trying to get some engagement, but I mean, just good things to go over. Know what kind of where you need to put you before you do your hatch. Know where you need to put your water. Know how the eggs turn. Those are all things that prep work ahead of time should be good to go. But if this really is her first time and she's just kind of messing around, okay. But
You
it takes
live and you learn.
a 2-minute Google would answer all your questions.
Exactly. And in the bathroom, probably not the best place. It gets super
Oh,
humid and crazy in there, but
yeah,
it could
I
be
like that
worse.
it's not in like a front room where the outside door is, but yeah, you're exactly right. If this is a guest bathroom that's not being used for showers or any kind of like that's probably a good spot for it. But if
Hmm.
people are going to be showering in there, it gets humid and hot. So don't put it in a bathroom that's being used. All right. This is a longer video. All right. This is Pigment and Plume Farms.
Since it's about to be springtime, which is hatching season for those of us that participate, I figured I'd make a quick video on the top 5 mistakes you might be making when you incubate. Who am I? I'm Jill from Pigment and Plume Farms, here to hopefully teach you how to be more self-resilient and reliant, and even homestead in urban environments, specifically a city. So that being said, let's get started. So some of the mistakes, the top 5 I think, that you would make in incubating are constantly checking. You have a dirty incubator and or dirty eggs. You are opening it after lockdown, or you have incorrect humidity and or temperature. So those two kind of go together, but we'll stop from the top. So I think the first mistake that a lot of people make, especially if it's your first time incubating eggs, is that you're constantly checking. You want to know all the time, like, oh my gosh, are they okay? You're candling every other day, all of these things. Whenever you're disrupting the egg, that is really going to impact its ability to hatch, especially, as it's forming, it's trying to stay in position and to make sure that the cell forms in the right place so that the chick is in the right position to hatch and pip and make sure that it's getting that air sac. So the more that you disrupt that, and especially with quail eggs, sometimes it can be kind of difficult to tell which end is the right end up if they're pretty round. So I would just say to, relax. If you really must candle, then I would say candle as you're going into lockdown and then leave them alone. I mean, obviously you want to candle before you put the eggs in the incubator to make sure that there's no small cracks or anything like that, because that can cause its own set of problems. But that's just one thing, constantly checking, constantly opening the lid, and everything else. The second issue that a lot of people have is maybe they didn't clean their incubator out well enough last time. A lot of dust and little feather bits, fluff gets stuck in the fans. If they happen to poop in the incubator, you got to get that out, and you want to try to do that as soon as you can after hatching is over, so it doesn't have a chance to stick. You want to be careful of your incubator parts, such as any kind of turners, motors, small things like that in there that shouldn't get wet. But there's lots of ways to clean it, so make sure you're cleaning it thoroughly, and you are cleaning it. And then if you store it anywhere, make sure you're properly cleaning it again before you incubate your eggs. If you need to kind of clean eggs, like I would say don't put any eggs in there that have a lot of poop on them. There's ways you can kind of like gently sand the egg to get that off, or wipe it gently with a cloth, but you don't want to wash the eggs before going in there necessarily. I know there's some talk of doing that. I know commercial hatcheries do something different, but for the most part, you want to just kind of leave the eggs as they were, but you can gently try to scrape some of those things off without harming the egg before going in. That's going to increase the chances of chick survival rates and not getting exposed to bacteria while you're kind of waiting, after they've hatched, while you're waiting for it to move them into the brooder. The third biggest mistake people make is opening up after lockdown. Lockdown is a really critical time. That's where you're typically boosting humidity and the chicks really starting to form and get ready for hatch. So if you're opening the lid, that's going to mess with your temperatures, that's going to mess with your humidity, and you could more than often than not likely shrink wrap your chick inside the egg, and then they won't hatch. So that's the biggest issue there. Other things, if you're having issues with humidity, and this is the fourth one, humidity is a problem. Depending on where you live, if you live in a really humid environment, you may not even put water in your incubator. If you live in a dry environment like I do, I struggle to get it to 55, 65%. So I dry hatch the first part and then I bump the humidity at lockdown. Well, the challenge is sometimes it doesn't like want to register that humidity. So how can you do that? You can put a sponge in lockdown, wet sponge in that area, and that'll hold and retain some of that moisture better. But you do not want to put anything that is like a cup or anything like that in the incubator that holds water, because once the chicks hatch, they can drown themselves, and that is very dangerous. So don't spray the eggs either, because that can actually cause too much wetness and too much humidity. The egg is porous and can cause the chicks to drown. So I would recommend maybe a wet paper towel underneath, or my best recommendation is a sponge if you're really struggling with humidities in dry environments like the desert, out west, high desert, anything like that. And lastly is temperatures. You need to make sure you have a secondary source to check your temps. That thermometer and humidity hydrometer on the incubator itself are not always accurate. I have noticed mine can be off by a good 10 degrees. The temperature is usually always right, but the humidity is what is typically off. And so you need to make sure you're checking that constantly, and you have a second way of validating. I've used the sort of manual ones because we breed reptiles as well. I've used those. I stick them in there with the eggs and just kind of monitor it, and that way it's giving me a second point, and those I know are really accurate. Other people actually will put another thermometer, point hydrometer thing in there that's like a little hose that you kind of string out, and it's like a little wire piece that can go in. So whichever way, you need a secondary check. So that might be why your hatch rates are low if you don't have that. But those are the big five. If you have any others that you might want to suggest for people in the comments, please.
All right. Wow. I gotta say, those that was a great video for explanations.
Yeah, that's some good detail there.
I would send that video to anybody just starting out. That she covered a lot of good things, especially, not opening up and checking on it. All of those, I mean, are great chicken, hacks and mistakes that people use when they're first starting. So don't make those mistakes. Honestly, that was a great video.
Yeah, yep. I love how she just instantly, right off the bat, called all the mother hens out. All the people who mother hen with their incubators. Don't be doing that. Leave it alone.
Leave it alone. But great information. That was a great video. Yeah, for sure. Okay. Let's do a couple more. Let me pull this down here. Where's my Instagram there? There it is. This one is just going to be more of a reaction. So just react while it's going. Now on Instagram, we have Bejeweled Coop.
It is time.
That is one nice coop.
Wow.
It is time.
I just gotta say that is one nice coop. I got a little bit of coop envy going on right now.
Definitely. Yeah, it has a chandelier in it. That is an amazing coop.
Yeah, look at that run
Wow.
too. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Man, I wish I had those kind of handy skills to build something like that, because that is beautiful.
I wish I had the time and property. Yeah, amazing. Good. Hats off to you. That's a beautiful coop. All right.
This big old stock tank from Tractor Supply. We got their food and water,
Hold on,
or at least the feeder's there, ready to go. This is a
Seagram Farm. Now from Seagram Farms. The joys of Instagram.
put this whole setup on the back.
Do it again. It mutes it automatically.
Base in our garage yesterday because our original plan was to put this whole setup on the back porch, but because the ambient temperature is not warm yet, we're gonna put them in the garage. So we got this big old stock tank from Tractor Supply. We got their food and water, or at least the feeder's there, ready to go. This is a heating pad thing that's safer than a heat lamp. I've got it angled a little so it'll kind of radiate off of the metal too. The chicks can all fit under here, and this grows as the chicks grow, so we can pull it up. Bruno's very interested. So we'll have this set up for warmth on this side, and we'll have food and water over here. I'm trying to find something to put under here. I want like a piece of board or plastic or something so that the hemp shavings don't go into the food and water as often. Okay, I found a feed bag that was empty, and I cut a little piece off and I put that under there. I don't think that's gonna last very long, but it's a start. Ideally, both of these, I bought them because they have hangers, so ideally they'll hang from whatever roof situation we put up here. But while the chicks are like a few days old, it does kind of need to be as close to the ground as possible. So hanging is definitely the plan, but for now, this will do. We are using hemp bedding instead of pine shavings because it's supposed to be less dusty. And last time we had pine shavings in this garage, everything got coated in a nice layer of dust. So we don't want to do that. And then we're trying something new. So this is the power cord for that. We need to make a lid for this. We haven't done that yet. That's on the list to do soon. But we got this little like high tunnel greenhouse situation for when it was going to be on the back porch, to kind of heat it and keep the heat in and keep predators out a little bit. We were going to put cinder blocks on the bottom part that overhangs, but it's still going to go in the garage to kind of help with the dust and also help with warmth. But yeah, so we're trying something new. Okay, weekly.
All right.
I love that.
This
Wow.
is a great little brooder setup that they have going on here.
Yeah, yeah.
I really like the it's I don't know how many chicks they are, but I mean you could put quite a bit of chicks in that. Um, it's got the
A
great
lot of room, yeah.
plate for them, so it's not a big, heat lamp. I like that. I like that there's um, a good spot for the food and everything. Um, yeah, when they're first this bad, I don't think you need the hemp shavings when they're like a week old. I would probably just do, just some matting, like make it easier. I mean, the hemp shavings are great, but yeah, makes it a little easier for the food not to be lost with that little,
Yeah.
thing of plastic she added. And
And
then
that little greenhouse cover, that is smart. I love that.
yeah, especially for helping keep the dust down. I mean, I have an instant brooder that we use, and it's still dust. The chickens just create dust.
Yeah, yep.
And
Yeah,
I don't even
they
have
are
pine.
dirty little critters.
Yeah. So great little setup for a brooder for sure. All right. I think we'll just call that a pod. Let me move
Okay.
this out of the background and we'll wrap it up. Just because I got the 10-minute warning again and we don't want it too long. All right, Patrick, some great clips from around the internet. Um, this has been a pretty informative podcast, I'd say. When we're talking about humidity and what to watch out for, and especially when you're looking to buy a incubator, what kind of humidity options do you have? I think that's really important. For a recap, I would definitely say when you're looking at your incubator setup, check the how the humidity levels are being verified and set. That's going to be, I mean, well worth buying a nicer incubator rather than a cheap one because your hatch rate's going to be a big difference.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And just remember, if you are struggling with humidity, there are options out there for you. Like we said earlier, you've got the HumidiKit. You can always add a little bit of sponge or a little something to increase your surface areas. You can experiment with dry hatching as long as you are able to maintain, a decent amount of humidity and bump it up for lockdown. There's tons of options out there. You're not limited to a set way of doing it or a set way of controlling it. You've got those options, and it's definitely worth exploring.
For sure, for sure. Well, till next time, this has been Hatch Talk. I'm Shawn Bailey,
I'm Patrick Lyle.
and happy hatching, everybody.
Catch you later.